a matchup.
And what a team, Mike. Metro PCS and the iPhone SE for $0 on a network that covers 99% of people in the U.S. Oh, impressive.
Play with the best. Switch to Metro PCS and get a 32-gig iPhone SE for $0. Metro PCS. Coverage not available in some areas, plus sales tax and $10 activation fee. Claim based on talk and text. Not valid for active numbers currently on the T-Mobile network or active on Metro PCS in the past 90 days. See store for details and terms and conditions.
Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, hello, hello. It's another glorious day, my T-Sippers, and you know what time it is. I hope you have all of your comfort together because it's time to dish the tea. And your dish darlings, with Big Meat.
Can't wait. Time to dish to with Big Meat. Time to dish to with Big Meat. Time to dish to with Big Meat. Time to dish to with Big Meat.
Darling.
Love is no fairy tale, but that isn't still to say. It knows how to teach us well. It helps us to find our way. As much as we sacrifice is only as much as we can gain. Forgiving, not once but twice, and then again and again. It isn't about how much we can get. It isn't remembering what love would forget. I found the secret of learning to live. It's all in how much we give. Sometimes the rain pours down, flooding across the land. And sometimes the sun shines bright, warming our hearts again. I'll be here by your side through every season's change. Oh, it isn't about how much we can get. It isn't remembering what love would forget. I found the secret of learning to live. It's all in how much. It's all in how much. It's all in how much we give. We can't see the days ahead or the unsuspecting ride. When the road is hard to find, love will be It isn't about how much we can get. It isn't remembering what love will forget. I found the secret of learning to live. It's all in how much. It's all in how much. It's all in how much we give. It's all in how much. All in how much. It's all in how much we give.
And hello. Hello out there in Blog Talk Radio land, here in the glorious United States and all across the globe. Hello to all of you over there in Germany and Italy and France and the Caribbean, and to all of you within the sound of my voice, honey. It's another glorious day, my T-Sippers. And I know you have all of your couplets together because it's time to Dish Tea, and you're dishing tea, darlings, with Big Meech. Well, good evening and good morning and hello to all of you. I'm coming to you again today with another commentary that I want to put on the record because, you know, this has been a topic that has been a major concern of mine, and I want to weigh in on it, and I want to give you an opportunity to voice your opinion as well. Of course, if you want to call into the show, the number to call is 347-205-9183. If you want to leave me questions, comments, concerns about this commentary, please feel free to do so at Big Meech at dishingtea.com. That's Big Meech, BIGMEACH at Gmail, and I'm sorry, at dishingtea.com. The Gmail address is dishingtea with Big Meech at gmail.com. Or you can just simply go to the website at dishingtea.com. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter and also on the YouTube page. I am Big Meech 1, the number 1, on Twitter and YouTube. On Facebook, you can find me at Big Meech. What I want to discuss, you know, just in recent times, Miss Stacey Dash has gotten a lot of things going on with her comments that she raised concerning the BET channel, concerning that there shouldn't be a Black History Month, you know, and this, that, and the other. And I think, you know, in our disdain for her comments, I think we missed her point because of how she packaged it. I heard where she was going. I did not like how she presented it because it sounded as if she had an axe to grind and that she was just completely disheartened by the fact of all this separatism and things. You know, she brought up points about whether or not folks wanted to be integrated or segregated, and that we have to be mindful of that, and that we just can't pick and choose or whatever. Her comments about Black History Month, you know, seem so insensitive because it seems as though she forgot the reason why Black History Month even exists. And quite frankly, you know, the fact that it's a whole month now. When I started school, we had Black History Week, and it was always the first week of February. And from what I'm understanding, how it got started was because folks wanted to make sure that Black history was incorporated. And since Fredrick Douglass's birthday is in February and Abraham Lincoln's birthday is in February, two noted people who were, since Abraham Lincoln, you know, signed the Emancipation Proclamation to abolish slavery. And, of course, Fredrick Douglass being the outspoken orator that he was, you know, Black History Week started to, you know, in February to culminate those two birthdays and things like that so that we can have a positive image and then to have history told from a different perspective that wasn't being taught in schools outside of, you know, the standard mainstream instances that they were giving us about slavery and carrying on. We never knew about the rich history of our heritage. And so her comments seem to be so insensitive, and I'm sure many of us have gotten so over it, so much so to where I saw a meme on Facebook to where they were going to cancel or retire the whole Bye Felicia expression and say, you know, farewell Stacey or bye Stacey or whatever the case may be. And, you know, many folks are like they want to disown her from the race and all that kind of jazz. However, you know, her insensitivity, I understood her point. You know, it should be, you know, where it's just American history. You know, in a perfect world, she's right. You know, there would be no separatism. Everything would have its place in the annals of history and things. However, that's not what's being taught. And the other thing with Black History Month that seems to get on my nerves is that I'm tired of Black History Month always meaning Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, Frederick Douglass, and George Washington Carver. Okay? Those names are the names that we always hear during Black History Month. And it bothers me because we have such a rich history. We have such a flagrant time here. So we're so effervescent within the tapestry of American history to where, we have to learn how to broaden our horizons, and we have to learn how to dig deep and get into history. We may not like it, some of it, but we can't erase it because it's already happened. You cannot go back in time and change it. Our history is our history. When we look over our life, look over your own life and look at, go back and think of the things that you have done that made you who you are today. Some things that you've done, you are questionable. It was a learning experience. You learned some things that you did not like, some things that you've experienced, of course, are monumental in your life. You'll never forget them or whatever, but they were there. You can't go back and erase that. And one of the things that we cannot go back and erase is the fact that this man that I want to talk about and highlight, as far as the civil rights movement is concerned, without him, there would be no Martin. There would be no Rosa. There would be no civil rights movement. And the annals of history, although we are now looking to bring his name forward and to call him forth now, the annals of history are not going to erase him. And it is my duty as a man, an American of African descent, to make sure that just as quickly as we say Martin Luther King Jr., we call Bayard Rustin. Okay? And I take issue with this because as someone who's on the front line of equality, making sure that the LGBT community is given its just due, oftentimes we have to fight with those of the black community because, we want to be told that the LGBT struggle, or it's called the human rights movement, but everybody wants to say they call it the gay rights movement, which I take issue with. However, that's a personal thing. But for lack of a better term, so that you can understand me, the gay rights movement have been deemed, has been said that it's the same as the civil rights movement. And black people seem to get upset about that. They tend to dismiss it. They want to get all up in arms. They get very defensive. And they want to sit down there and say, how can you say that that's the same? Because you don't have to open up your mouth. You don't have to, quote unquote, act gay. You could change all that. I can't change my skin color. I can't this and I can't that. So our movements and the civil rights movement is completely different. And I'm here to tell you, sweetie, it is not. It is the exact same thing. What I will say is this, is that oftentimes when that particular phrase has been uttered, it has been uttered from our Caucasian counterparts. And that's where the offense comes into play. Our Caucasian counterparts want to tell black folks that this struggle is the same, and they're coming from a place where they have no complete point of reference. They have never been discriminated against simply because of this color of their skin. They can walk into different places. They can, it has never been an ostracization of a gay person simply because of their skin color until we bring in folks of color. Because yes, children, even though we're fighting for the LGBT equality or whatever, blacks and persons of color within the LGBT community, we are still fighting this fight of civil rights and carrying on within the community. We're looking to celebrate diversity and all of that within the community. And so for those of you who feel as though it's not the same, I have to sit down and tell you it is the same, because many of you may not know or don't want to know or don't care to rationalize the idea that Bayard Rustin is the designer, he is the architect, he is the blueprint maker, he is the organizer, he is the administrator of the civil rights movement. A black gay man created the civil rights movement. Okay? And that there, because of his mission and his work to be all-inclusive, Bayard Rustin was a proponent of integration so that all people can take advantage of what integration was going to be. You know, for the educational value, for the economic empowerment, Bayard Rustin was the one who introduced Martin Luther King Jr. to the ways of Gandhi and carrying on. Bayard Rustin had gone over. He's done some extensive study over in India and things, and the whole nonviolent movement was something that he had adopted from them, and he brought that over here. Prior to building the civil rights movement, he was involved in many, many, many other social justice, what I like to call ministries, that were for the empowerment of people. And these tactics were his creed. Now, what I find to be relatively funny is that in the beginning, before he was known to come into contact with Dr. King, the NAACP did not want to be bothered with a nonviolent movement because they thought it was too meek. They thought it was too prissy. They thought it was too not getting the job done. And so when it came about that Dr. King came into Mr. Rustin's consciousness, and Bayard decided that, he wanted to get involved. Dr. King then became a student, if you will, of Bayard Rustin. And so in the beginning, from what the research says, there was a butting of the heads, if you will, because their philosophies were totally different. At one point in time, it is said that Dr. King, was one who had guns and things in his home to protect his home and to protect his wife and his children and things and his family life and all of that. And it was Bayard who came in and was like, man, if you're going to do this, honey, nonviolence means nonviolence. You can't be the one to sit down here and preach nonviolence and then you have guns and everything. And it took a minute, from what I'm understanding, before that idea permeated Dr. King's consciousness, and so until he adopted the philosophy, of having a nonviolent movement to where we're going to conquer this thing with love and understanding. And a lot of us feel as though, that there is not a proper approach. However, Bayard was one when he orchestrated the march and carrying on. He was the one that was designing it, and oftentimes had opposition from those of the other leaders. Particularly, Adam Clayton Powell was one who did not want him to be the leader. That he did not want Bayard to gain any credit. And this, that, and the other, because of him being gay. Now, it has been noted that during some time that Bayard was living in California, that was the first time that his sexuality came into practice, because he was arrested for lewd behavior in the parked car. Basically, he was getting it on in the car with some boy, and he was arrested. And that was the first time that his sexuality became public. And so because of that, it made some press and all of those kinds of things. And though it was kept in the background, where it was public, because of its public announcement and carrying on of all of that, Bayard decided to stay in the background. So a lot of the things that he did as far as orchestrating and carrying on was done undercover. He did a lot of writings for magazines and things that was done undercover. So putting all this together for the March on Washington, it was decided, and he got forced out because Adam Clayton Powell threatened that he was going to go to Congress and carry on and expose him, as a homosexual. Okay? And that was dirty, dirty pool. However, because of that and not wanting to bring any kind of light or negative attention to what the greater good was, Bayard decided to bow out. And if you pay attention, I don't know if many of you know this, because in the movie, any of the movies that deal with Dr. King's life, there's a scene, one in particular, where there was a guy that they had taken out of town and they put him in the trunk of the car. That was Bayard, okay, when they got him out of town and carried on. But he is the blueprint behind everything that we stand on as Americans of African descent in this country. He is the one who I would like to hear more of. When, coming to Atlanta, I would like to see on MLK weekend, although we're celebrating his birthday, I would like to see us as African American or Americans of African descent gay people flock to rallies and carry it on and represent for Bayard Rustin, because Dr. King would not be who he is as we know him without Bayard Rustin, a black gay man who was in his corner, who sat down there. And see, the whole friendship to this thing speaks to Dr. King's openness for each and every person to be individually free and to be who they are. For him to sit down there and to welcome Bayard into the fold, honey, was one thing. Now, what folks don't really understand is that Bayard helped him put together the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. They put that together. Bayard was very instrumental in him putting that together, so much so to where Dr. King was going to elect Bayard to be the executive director over the SCLC. But it became controversial about that because of him being gay. Yes. So, see, a lot of that inclusion and carrying on, which is why I was a little upset with Dr. King's daughter, Bernice, when she partnered with Eddie Long and things, and they came out against homosexuals and all that kind of stuff and doing all that marching and stuff here in Atlanta, and, wanted to sit down there, and I don't want to misquote her, so I'm going to just paraphrase what I thought I heard. Now, if I'm wrong, y'all will correct me, please. But I heard her say that this was something that her father would not have approved of, to sit down there and we're talking about, same-sex marriages and carrying on and this, that, and the other. However, in order to be liberated and in order to fight for freedom, in order to fight for the inclusion of all people, honey, all people means just that, all people. I don't give a damn about the Ku Klux Klan or whatever. I do not agree with their philosophies. However, because we have the right to free speech, I would damn sure fight for their right to say whatever the hell they want to say. Because if I don't fight for theirs, I can't have nobody shut me up and they come after me. For the right of all people to be inclusive and to have equal power and to have equality in this society means that we have to take on the good with the bad and the ugly and the indifferent. You can't pick and choose when you say all. What part of all is exclusive? I don't like drug addicts and carrying on. However, that there became their personal choice when they started it, and then they got addicted to it, so now it chose them. The addiction that took over. I don't want them around me in my presence or whatever. At the same time, I have to fight for them to be able to eat, to have decent housing, and this, that, and the other, because they are human beings. I can't pick and choose who the equality is supposed to be for. The civil rights movement and carrying on was for that we as a people, those who are oppressed, particularly black folks, are sitting up here wanting to be at the table so we have equal power. That is both for education, our voting power, our political power, our economic power, so we can have a place in this society so that we can be heard and so that all of our needs can be answered just like everybody else's. So if that's what that's about, the human rights or the gay rights movement is saying the exact same thing. And as an African American or American of African descent person who happens to be gay, I'm telling you the damn fight is the same. And in some cases it's even worse, because not only do I got to fight those who are oppressing me, I got to fight those inside as well. I got to fight black folks who sit up there and tell me that I ain't no good and I ain't got no business and I shouldn't and this, that, and the other, or I'm not masculine enough, or I don't want to sit down here because I sleep with men or whatever, that I'm doing a disservice to black women. That ain't got nothing to do with you when we talking about sitting up here fighting for equal and for equal rights, equal power, and equity at the table of mainstream society. That is what this is. Once you get past all your personal things, when we go in each other's houses, honey, when you close your door, I don't know what the hell is going on behind closed doors until you offer me or invite me into it. Okay? If you're sitting down there beating your wife and carrying on, I don't know you're doing it until it becomes noticeable. And then we have to sit down there and take a stance on it because that there is hurting the community. That's not building anything. I don't know that your children are being neglected until it comes to the forefront. And one of the things about that is that we as a people, we don't know when to talk and when to shut the fuck up. See, you talk about the wrong things and then be quiet on the shit you need to talk about. Okay, this is why we cannot advance. And then you sit down there and pick and choose, causes and things that have no relevance to the growth of the people. And this is why we cannot sit down here and get this thing together. Bayard Rustin, I'm going to call his name, a black man who happens to be gay, is the orchestrator and the designer of the civil rights movement as we know it. So, sweetie, for those of you who want to sit down there and still think that the gay rights movement and the human rights movement, and the civil rights movement, rather, are not the same, I'm telling you they are. I am telling you that they are. Those of you who want to sit down there and get upset about it, honey, you can't erase the past. You can't erase it. There's nothing you can do about it. Because if you pay attention, once everything started coming about, every other movement started to pattern themselves after it. When women started getting together and things and all of that and to fight for women's rights to carry on, even though there were fights before when we had women's suffrage for the women's right to vote back in 1920 and all of that, when we had all of that, they still patterned themselves after the March on Washington and the Civil Rights Movement. Everything else started to pattern themselves after what was going on then. And so that there became a brainchild or the offspring of what the Civil Rights Movement did. Do you see what I'm saying? So everything there, yes, a gay man orchestrated that, sugar. So for those of you who don't like it, I don't know what else to tell you. Stacey Dash, honey, Black History is very, 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 the Black History Month, rather, is very important. However, the sad thing about it is that folks are not realizing, honey, I create history every day. So my Black History is 365. I like that campaign. When the black owners of McDonald's came out, my Black is 365 or 366 because this year is a leap year. Yes, that there is where this thing needs to be. Every day we need to make sure that we recognize someone from history, that we recognize someone who made a considerable effort to uplift the community, to make sure that we are all moving in the right direction so that we can get growth and matriculation so that we can move forward, so that our children can have a better life than what we did. That's the one thing about this thing that it's supposed to be. As parents and as the village, you always want the next generation to do better, to be better. But we find ourselves in competition with it. And I don't understand. If your goal is so that the dream that you fought for within the civil rights movement and the gay rights movement or whatever, if your dream is so that no one can suffer the way that you did, why are we not celebrating that when we see that the young folks are moving in that direction? At the same time, we have to make sure that the tools are there in place so that they can keep it going. You know what I'm saying? Because oftentimes we have dropped the ball and not given them the tools to keep it going. And then we want our voices to come out of theirs when they have a voice of their own. And that there is where this is. Bayard laid that out. The blueprint is already there. So for those of you who don't like it, honey, I'm sorry. I don't know what else to tell you. No, I'm not sorry. I can't be sorry because it's not my doing. That there is what history is. We can't erase the history. We can't erase the past because that there is where it is. A gay man, a black gay man, designed, orchestrated, administered the civil rights movement. There is no Martin Luther King Jr., there is no Rosa Parks, there is no Clayton Powell, there is no Andrew Young, there is nothing without Bayard Rustin. Now, for those of you who love me, honey, follow me, like I said, on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and all of that. Look me up, honey. Big Meech, BIGMEACH, or Big Meech, the number 1. And you can email me at BigMeech, BIGMEACH, at dishingtea.com. I look forward to hearing from you, and let's get this conversation going. You heard me? I'll probably piss a couple of you off, but I don't give a damn. I'll talk to you later. Ciao.
Are you ready for some fireworks? Because Banana Republic Factory is about to celebrate our mega summer sale. Entire store 50 to 70% off. Dresses from $19.99, shorts from $16.99. It's insane. Grab your friends. Banana Republic Factory. See you there.